Pokémon is a very large franchise. It's actually the largest franchise. It shouldn't be surprising when someone says they like it, but as of late, it's really declined, at least in terms of quality. Newer games have been filled with bugs, bare-bones stories, and performance issues. Some redeeming qualities exist too, but it's very difficult to enjoy these games for me. Pokémon currently has 9 generations, or eras of game. Generation 6, in my eyes, is where things started to decline. The 3D models are very boringly animated, just flying or standing, as well as looking kind of off. But there are plenty of videos on why newer generations are soulless, and that's not why I decided to make a Pokémon video in the first place. Gen 5 is 100% my favorite Pokémon game. Older generations are certainly good, but 5, which is the Unova region, is overall my favorite. The game mainly follows 3 characters. Sharon, a hot-headed trainer who seeks strength over all else, Bianca, a flighty but also determined trainer who struggles with finding her place in the world, and your player character, which I named Spell, because Spelunker was too many characters. Sharon and Bianca, both being your rival, accompany you on your journey to becoming the Pokémon champion, as is the goal in all Pokémon games. During your journey, you encounter this generation's evil team, being Team Plasma. Team Plasma is led by the 7 sages, the main one being Getsis. N is also a member of Team Plasma, but his motives and characteristics are more up in the air. A big theme in this generation's story is the difference between truth and ideals. N brings this up multiple times, pointing out that both Sharon and Bianca represent this theme, with Sharon wanting the ideal of strength, and Bianca facing the truth that she won't be nearly as strong as Sharon or your player character. N also changes depending on the version you play, black or white, because he chooses a different legendary depending on your game. I played Pokemon Black, which means N fights with Zekrom and pursues an ideal world where people and Pokemon are separated, as he believes that people abuse Pokemon. This perspective shift depending on your version is something I haven't seen done before in this way, and it really poses the philosophical question of which is the correct option in such a creative way. Just because, let's talk about my team. I named my starter Pokemon Unker, finishing my name, Spell and Unker. I named my Gothitelle Morrigan, because Morrigan is a character in one of my favorite games as of late.
Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
My Zebstrika is named Lise, after the Splunky 2 character. I also have a Haxorus named Mr. right after my favorite lawyer. I named a Scraffiacat Doom, which is a reference to Doctor Doom. And finally, I named my Reshiram Virgil, because
I need more power!
Could you tell I like Marvel vs. Capcom? I really love the music in Gen 5. This game's soundtrack is incredibly dynamic as well as musically creative. For example, when you reach low HP, a remix of the low HP noise plays. Another track that is just a stroke of genius is when you're about to beat a gym. These 2 tracks make battles so much more intense. When you're about to lose, win, the tone can be flipped in an instant, and the soundtrack demonstrates that in such a great way. The battle themes aren't the only thing that make the soundtrack good though, because almost every theme in this game is great. From the town themes like Accumula Town and Ikaria City that change depending on how you explore the locations, to the excellent evolution of previous games' themes, like the music that plays when you're capturing your game's legendary, or the rare encounter music. And the music isn't single-handedly carrying the experience. There's many hours of content besides the main gameplay. You have things like the Battle Subway, which is just a solid way to fight more trainers. There's also places like the Abyssal Ruins, located in a post-game area, which has almost no connection to the game, but it's just a fun underwater maze. Wow, that's an oxymoron if I've ever heard one. Which has its own made-up language. It's actually been fan-translated and tells its own story, as well as giving you hints on what to do. What other game do you know that has genuinely made its own language, giving you no hints on how to translate it, and it containing the solution to the maze you're in? This game has so much post-game to do, with things that are as simple as the Elite Four refights or an entire new half of the map to explore. There's also a whole post-game plot you can play out. Another thing that really elevates this game is the animated sprites, which is an evolution on how the previous generation animated sprites upon switching to a certain Pokemon. Gen 5, however, has fully animated sprites that are dynamic with battle, slowing or freezing at low health or on status conditions. Trainers also have little animations they do upon first starting a battle, like Bianca or N. N? What the fuck does N mean? It totally doesn't have some insanely deep and intelligent meaning, right? Oh boy, you're in for something. N is short for Natural Harmonia Gropius, as confirmed by the developers. This name is speculated to mean multiple things, one of them being related to calculus functions, but the theory I think is true is the name being related to two things: enharmonic equivalence, which is when two notes that are differently notated in musical notation play the same note, that and Gropius being the name of a famous architect who invented a style of architecture that is very uniform and bland, much like the outfits of Team Plasma. The enharmonic equivalence is represented by N and Getsis, son and father respectively, who are working towards the same goal of separating people in Pokemon. The different notation here is their motives. N is trying to do good, and is being manipulated by Getsis in the process, and believes that people hurt Pokemon. Getsis wants to accomplish this, and he wants the divine right to rule, via being the only person who can control Pokemon, hence enharmonic equivalence. So that's the amount of work put into one name. Or two, I guess. Do you see why I love this game yet? No? How much more do I have to explain this to you? How much more? How much? By explaining what N's name fully means. I've also just explained what makes him and Getsis such compelling villains to me. One more detail I like about how N is portrayed is how his views are challenged throughout the game. He always talks about how your player is different, and eventually he mentions it's because your Pokemon actually liked battling with you, unlike most other trainers he's seen. I think the way he deals with this throughout the game, while not entirely shown, is interesting. Speaking of things not entirely shown, this game's mechanics usually. Gen 5 isn't the usual, though, because this game does an excellent job of teaching you some of its more niche mechanics, like how Pokemon Rangers battle you and make a point of using different berry items, showing you their uses. Scientist trainers do this as well, but instead use X items, which is both excellent theming and a smart way to teach you these mechanics without being overbearing, unlike some parts of this game. Don't you just love the atmosphere of these places? You can almost feel the ambience. I could see every one of these people and imagine what kind of lives they have. It's all just very relaxing.